You've been told screens are poison. For some brains, they're medicine. That sentence probably made you uncomfortable. Every parenting article you've read says the same thing. Less screen time, more outdoor play, less tablet, more eye contact. But for a specific group of children, that advice is backwards, and the reason why is written directly into their nervous system. In 2012, researcher Micah Mazurek at the University of Virginia studied media use in children with autism spectrum disorder. She found something researchers didn't expect. These kids weren't just watching screens more than their peers. They were regulating through them. Not escaping, regulating. Think about what that word actually means for a second. A neurotypical brain processes a face the way you process a familiar song. Smooth, automatic, predictable enough that you don't have to think about it. But for many neurodivergent brains, a human face is closer to static. Micro-expressions shift without warning. Eye contact carries social rules nobody explained out loud. Tone of voice changes meaning in ways that feel arbitrary. The information keeps coming, and none of it holds still. Now, put a screen in front of that same child. A cartoon character blinks on the same beat every time. A jingle repeats in the exact same 4 bars. A shape bounces across the frame on a loop that never once surprises you. This is not chaos. This is the opposite of chaos. This is one of the only environments some of these children encounter all day that behaves exactly the way it promised it would behave. That's the reframe. Screens aren't stealing attention from these kids. They're the first stable ground some of them stand on. Here's where it gets interesting, because this isn't just a comfort thing. It's a chemistry thing. Neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz spent decades studying dopamine, and one of his most important findings had nothing to do with pleasure. It had to do with prediction. Dopamine doesn't fire the biggest when something feels good. It fires the biggest when an outcome matches what the brain expected. Schultz called this a reward prediction signal. Your brain is constantly betting on what happens next, and when reality lines up with the bet, you get a small, clean hit of reward. For a dysregulated nervous system, that hit is not a luxury. It's fuel, executive function, the mental system responsible for planning, switching tasks, and controlling impulses runs on a kind of internal battery. Stress drains that battery fast. Predictability recharges it. So when a child watches the same 3-second loop of a train going through a tunnel 40 times in a row, they are not being lazy. They are running a low-stakes, high-certainty simulation that gives their brain exactly the kind of clean, expected outcome it's been starving for all day. Ask yourself something. Have you ever rewatched a comfort show you already know by heart on a night when everything else felt like too much? That's the same mechanism. You just have more tools to manage the feeling. A 5-year-old doesn't. Temple Grandin, one of the most well-known voices to ever write from inside the autistic experience, described her own mind as one that thinks entirely in pictures. Not language first. Images first, sequenced like a slideshow, edited and replayed the way a film gets edited and replayed. She wrote that unpredictability was one of the most exhausting parts of her early life, not because she disliked change, but because her brain had no shortcut for guessing what came next the way a neurotypical brain does. High-contrast visuals and rhythmic loops aren't a workaround for that kind of mind. They're a language it already speaks fluently. So picture the tablet differently now. Not a babysitter, not a digital pacifier, a scaffold. The same word an engineer would use for the temporary structure holding up a building mid-construction. You don't call scaffolding lazy. You don't call it a failure of the builder. You call it the thing that lets the real structure go up safely. For a nervous system trying to build the skill of self-regulation, a predictable digital loop can function exactly that way. It holds the shape steady while something harder gets built underneath. That doesn't mean every screen does this. That's the part most headlines skip. The research points to something specific. It's not raw screen time that produces this calming effect. It's the structure inside the content. A slow-moving, high-contrast pattern with a repeating rhythm activates this system. A fast-cut, unpredictable video with jump scares of sound and color does the opposite. It floods a system that was trying to find quiet with the exact chaos it was trying to escape. This is why two children can watch two different videos for the same 20 minutes and walk away in completely different states. One calmer, one more wound up than before they sat down. So the real question was never screens, good or bad. It was always which kind of stimulus and why. Here's the twist: most people never get told. The instinct to pull a screen away the second a neurodivergent child seems too into it often removes the exact tool that child was using to come back down to baseline. A parent sees a child locked onto a repeating video, assumes something has gone wrong, and interrupts. The interruption itself can trigger the dysregulation everyone was trying to prevent in the first place. That doesn't mean unlimited, unstructured, all-day screen access is the answer either. Occupational therapists who work with sensory processing differences describe it less like a light switch and more like a dosage. The goal isn't more or less. It's matched to what that specific nervous system needs in that specific moment, with content chosen on purpose instead of chosen by algorithm. Because algorithms don't optimize for regulation. They optimize for engagement. And those two goals only accidentally overlap. A show built for a neurodivergent viewer's nervous system holds its rhythm steady on purpose. A show built to maximize watch time escalates on purpose, because escalation keeps a viewer scrolling. One is scaffolding. The other is a slot machine wearing cartoon's face. They can look identical on a thumbnail and produce opposite outcomes in a child's body. This is the distinction almost nobody draws, and it's the one that actually matters. So think about what this reframes in your own house. Maybe you've watched a child melt down mid-transition and reach for a screen out of instinct rather than research. Maybe it worked, and you felt guilty about it anyway, because everything you'd read told you it shouldn't have. It's worth sitting with the idea that the calm you saw wasn't an accident, and it wasn't a failure on your part either. It may have been exactly what a predictable nervous system needed in a world that rarely holds still for it. The next time you watch a child lock onto a familiar, repeating loop, look a little closer at what's actually happening. That's not a child checking out. That's a nervous system checking in with the one part of its day that finally told the truth about what was coming next. You've been told screens are poison. For the right child, at the right dose, with the right content, they're close.